Martin Aitken of Aitken's Pewter and the craftsmen who work there are skilled craftsmen known for their exquisite work in the art of pewter. Born in Deep River, Ontario, and raised in Fredericton, Martin discovered his passion for working with metal after he was expelled from school at the age of 16. Martin's dedication to his craft and his commitment to preserving the tradition of pewter craftsmanship have made him a respected figure in the world of metalworking, with his work adorning homes and collections around the globe. Join us now as we meet Martin Aitken and learn the history of Aitken's Pewter.
I always had a hard time learning and struggled in school. And when I was 16, I was expelled from school. And I spent a summer doing a certain amount of carpentry and painting houses, and also being only 16 years old, also enjoying life probably a little bit more than I should have. And the opportunity arose for me to work an apprenticeship with Dr. Ivan Kroll here in Fredericton. And because I always liked making things, it turned out to be sort of a good solid introduction to what would become so far a 52-year career. Early on, the processes which I learned with Dr. Kroll were more attuned to somebody who was doing pewter as a hobby. And as we progressed, and I say we because after I opened Aitken's Pewter, a year after, my father joined me. And my father was a mechanical engineer, a certain amount of process engineering also. And it became evident that in order to make a living, some processes and things were going to have to change, some of the techniques about the way we make things. So he brought to us his background knowledge in how things were made in a more production orientated situation. Things like spinning, which is the art of forming the flat pewter discs into beer mugs and bowls, things like that, it's also a method used for making pots and pans and making lampshades and nose cones for rockets and things like that. So he had a knowledge of how things were formed in hollowware, and so we were able to develop that technique. The other side of things was casting, and pewter is a little bit of an awkward metal to cast in that it doesn't flow very easily, and it doesn't, when it's cooling, it tends to want to have a certain amount of porosity in it. And so it's important that you have certain amount of pressure when you're doing the casting. Anyway, so we learned how to do centrifugal rubber mold casting, which is a process that's used in the jewelry industry more or less around the world. But at the time when I started, it wasn't being done in New Brunswick at all. And both spinning and centrifugal mold casting, we learned how to do, and pretty much everybody else who's been in the pewter business in Eastern Canada has basically picked up the techniques from us. And so that's sort of how that developed. And today we use CAD/CAM milling to make patterns, whereas when I first started, I would have a piece of pewter on a jeweler's bench with a saw and some files, and I'd do a design on a piece of paper, and I'd glue that down on top of the piece of pewter that I had, and cut out around the lines and start to file and cut and chisel and embellish and polish and all that, and until I got the piece that I wanted. And we evolved from that to doing a photo etching process, and that was used in combination with doing the hand process. And then after that, we evolved into doing the 5-axis milling, and the designs are done on a computer. And what's interesting about all that development is that it really takes as long to develop the very first pattern on the computer using 5-axis milling as it did originally doing it by hand. There's really not a shortcut. Where the shortcut does come in is that if you make a mistake in your design, you can go in and correct it. Or if you're going to make another pattern of the exact same thing, you can set it up on the mill and produce it again. But the artwork and the initial cutting of the pattern, it takes just as long. It's a time-consuming process. And I say that it takes as long if you want to make it look really good. We pride ourselves on the amount of detail that we get on the items that we do make. And one of our claims to fame is making replicas of historical buildings. So customers will come to us and, ask that we get some particular architectural detail accentuated. And you might be taking a building that's 300 or 400 or 500 feet long or bigger and reducing it down to 2 inches. So that architectural feature is often minute, but typically we always manage to get it in. In the Aitken's Pewter line of products that's available for retail online and in our store, we probably have around 500 different items. We've just done a major, what's called a read of our mold shelves, our mold storage shelves, and we presently have 1,500 molds that we are looking after for customers, things that we've made for people. And over the 52 years that I've been in business, we have record of somewhat over 15,000 different pieces, different unique designs that we have made in that period of time, that many of which we don't make today and we don't have the molds for, but we do have to keep record of it because somebody will come along and say, well, do you make this? And we start digging through our molds and we go, well, where did we put that mold? So not only is it good to know what you do have, but it's good to know what you no longer have either. So in the 52 years, there's 2 very significant awards or recognitions that I take a great deal of pride in. And the first, just entirely out of the blue, was I received the Medal for Arts and Manufacturing from the Royal Society of Art. And as I say, it came completely out of the blue. My name was put forward anonymously, and so I didn't know that this was going to be awarded to me or given to me or bestowed upon me. And what I felt at the time was that I get kind of choked up talking about it. But you're working away, you're working very hard, and you're trying to do better. And I have a great knowledge of what it is that we do here, as do all the other people who work here. But it's wonderful when somebody from outside the arena or outside the community sort of looks upon and says, well, gosh, there's a guy who's trying really hard and he's pushing forward and he's doing a lot, and he is progressing. And so that's it's wonderful, when somebody recognizes you like that. The other significant item is pewter is in Canada fairly non-regulated. So years ago we joined the American Pewter Guild, which was a guild that regulated the making of pewter in the United States. And over a period of time, as I was trying to gather more and more knowledge, I'd often visit companies in the United States that made pewter and got to know the owners and the people involved. Anyway, they very kindly and graciously invited me as an outsider to become a member, and which I did. And as part of all of that, the touch marks of all the different pewter makers in the United States who belonged to the American Pewter Guild had their marks we made our marks on a sheet of pewter which is kept at the Smithsonian Institute. And here again, it's wonderful to to have some outside people who are in the industry. Some of them have been in the industry for 2 and 3 generations. And, and they would recognize Aitken's Pewter and say, yeah, they're part of us. We're part of that community. And it's very, for want of a better term, warm and fuzzy to feel like that. One of the significant people I met during that time was Charles Stieff. And I don't know whether he was the second or third or fourth. But at the time, he was the major owner of the Kirk Stieff family, which made pewter and silver plate. But it's a company that had been in business for over 200 years, and in the family and what have you. So, prior to the United States really forming, his family had been in business, and prior to the American Revolution and prior to the Civil War, and throughout all of that turmoil and everything, that same family kept on doing the same thing, for years and years. And it was a great pleasure and honor to meet him. One of the most challenging pieces that we made was a sculptorial piece that was commissioned to celebrate the changing over of what was NBTEL at the time from analog wave to digital. And so they were looking for a fairly significant piece to put on a credenza or on a boardroom table or in a boardroom, something with a lot of gravitas. And it required a curved wooden background of a dark wood. So if you can picture a semicircular shell coming off and rising up. And we made a wave out of pewter that was analog, and as the wave progressed, it then changed into a digital wave. So it went from one of these curvy things and then evolved into a square up and down affair that then had to be raised off the background. And that was both a challenge and an interesting thing to make. We certainly enjoyed that. And we've made things such as lapel pins for the Canadian government, where, in the course of a year we might have made 500,000 of them, to we've made donor walls which are 25 or 30 feet long, and height, and hundreds of names placed on it, and not hundreds of titles, but many titles, and a significant title piece. So we go from, everything that's just anything from 3/4 of an inch to as big as you like. And one of the comments I have when somebody asks me if I can do something in pewter, I always say, well, if you've got the time and the budget, we can make it out of pewter. But you've got to have both of those things. Right this minute, Aitken's pewter has evolved from, being very small, just me, and then we grew, and during the height of the retail business, we had 4 retail stores, and lots of corporate customers. And where we are today on McLeod Avenue in Fredericton, this is sort of what I call my retirement project, in that we've scaled everything down so that it's small and very easy to run, and I'm not chasing a ball up a hill. The types of projects we're doing now, we do a lot of items for fundraisers or recognition pieces for downtown associations or associations that are looking to raise money. Typically these go in the form of an ornament, which is either a replication of a collection of buildings in a community that have a lot of emotional connection to the community, something like a hospital or a library or a courthouse. And then on the other side of that sort of design coin, we reproduce pictures or paintings. And Clarenville, Newfoundland, the Chamber of Commerce there, typically every year they have a local artist, produce a painting, and then we produce that in pewter, and it's used as a fundraiser to help with the Chamber of Commerce. Now, having said all that, one of the things that I'm particularly keen on right now, annually we produce a limited edition Christmas ornament, and we over the years we've done everything from the 3 wise men to the characters in the Nutcracker Suite to depicting Christmas carols. So this year we're very fortunate to be working in conjunction with Catherine Carnes-Munn of Fredericton, who has a lot of fame for producing this style of Victorian art, which we're going to transform into one of our annual limited edition Christmas ornaments, which will be introduced for 2024.
It's very exciting to be asked to do this for Martin. I have such a great love for the Victorian homes, and throughout the Maritimes and throughout Canada, and especially of Fredericton. And I chose this home here, yellow being my favorite color, but I don't think the ornament is going to have yellow on it. But
you never know.
You never know.
From a craftsman standpoint, what we'll be doing next is our in-house artist, Kyle Brewer, will take this image and transform it into a computer drawing. And what he does is creates the depth of the ornament, because the ornaments are 3-dimensional, but the proper term for it is bas-relief. And so what Kyle will do is bring the front veranda out, and the main part of the house will then be pushed back, and of course everything is going to be reduced at this point. Then our intention is that Catherine has very generously donated this painting to us, or to the project, let's say. And what we're going to do is we're going to auction this off, and the funds will be donated to Autism New Brunswick. we hope that we'll have these available in the early part of June. We'll be letting our collectors know that they will be ready for them in the early part of June. So if we have somebody's name and address, they'll get a notification from us at that time. And then after that, we'll make it available to everybody. This is my retirement plan. If you're in small business, private business in Canada, you got to keep going. And the important thing is to have something to do, to get up in the morning. As both you gentlemen know, it's it's good to have something. This is a creative business. It's constructive, and aside from dealing with all the paperwork and what have you, it's pretty interesting thing to be doing. And there's always new people that we're meeting and new ideas and things that we're working on, that what we do today is not the same thing that we did yesterday. So it's not the same in any way.